Commander Lisa Martinez stood at the bridge of the UES Discovery as it approached Nexus Prime Station. The massive structure floated in space like a silver flower with 7 petals. Each petal belonged to one of the alien species that ruled the galaxy. Lisa had trained for this moment her whole life, but nothing could have prepared her for what she was about to face. The Discovery was humanity's first ship to travel beyond their solar system. Earth had only discovered faster than light. Travel 5 years ago, when an alien probe crashed on Mars, human scientists had reverse-engineered the technology and built this ship in record time. Now Lisa was leading the first diplomatic mission to meet the aliens who had been watching Earth for centuries. Lisa was not like other diplomats. She had fought in the colonial wars on Mars and Europa. She had 3 degrees in biology and warfare tactics. Most importantly, she never backed down from a fight. Her crew trusted her completely because she had never let them down. The communication system crackled to life. A strange voice spoke in perfect English. "Human vessel, you are cleared. For docking bay 7, prepare for atmospheric adjustment." Lisa nodded to her pilot Jake Rivera, who guided the ship into the station with smooth precision. The docking bay was enormous and filled with ships unlike anything humans had ever seen. Some looked like living crystals, while others appeared to be made of flowing gas contained in invisible barriers. One ship seemed to be constructed entirely from plants that pulsed with green light. Another vessel was clearly mechanical but moved like it was alive. Lisa adjusted her dress uniform and checked her sidearm. Earth had decided their representative should come armed as a sign that humans were not helpless. She walked down the ramp, followed by her small team of specialists. The air smelled strange, with hints of ozone and something that might have been flowers. A group of 7 beings waited for them in the center of the bay. Each one was completely different from the others. The leader appeared to be made of living crystal that changed colors as it moved. Next to it stood a creature that looked like controlled gas with glowing eyes. A giant insect with 4 arms chittered softly, while an aquatic being in a water suit observed silently. An energy being flickered between different forms, while a plant creature swayed gently. The last being was clearly mechanical with red glowing sensors. The crystal being stepped forward and spoke without moving what might have been a mouth. "I am Admiral Kaseth of the Jektar. Welcome to Nexus Prime. Humans, we represent the galactic coalition that has maintained peace in this galaxy for over 1 million years." Lisa stepped forward and saluted in the Earth military fashion. "I am Commander Lisa Martinez, representing the United Earth Government. We come seeking peaceful relations and mutual cooperation." Kaseth's crystal body shifted through several colors that might have indicated amusement. "How refreshing. Another young species with such grand ambitions. Please follow us to the council chamber where we can discuss your future." They walked through corridors that seemed to change based on which species was leading. When Kaseth walked ahead, the walls became crystalline. When the gas being took the lead, the corridors filled with comfortable mist. Lisa noticed that each alien seemed most comfortable in their own environment but struggled slightly in the others. The council chamber was a massive dome with 7 distinct sections. Each area was designed for one of the alien species. There was a crystalline platform, a gas-filled chamber, a water tank, a garden area, an energy field, a mechanical station, and a section that seemed normal by human standards. Kaseth gestured for Lisa to stand in the center while the 7 aliens took their positions around her. She felt like she was on trial, but kept her expression calm and confident. "Commander Martinez," Kaseth began, "we have observed your species for many decades. Humans show primitive promise, but you are clearly outmatched by civilizations that have existed for millions of years. We have technologies that your people cannot imagine and powers that would seem like magic to you." The insect being clicked its mandibles and spoke in a voice like grinding metal. "Your species fights constant wars among themselves. You pollute your own planet and struggle to survive in space. These are the actions of children, not equals." The aquatic being's voice bubbled through its water suit. "We have seen species like yours before. aggressive, short-lived, and unable to think beyond immediate survival. Most destroy themselves before reaching the stars. Lisa listened carefully to each criticism. She had expected this kind of reception. Earth's history was indeed violent and chaotic, but she also knew that chaos could be a strength if properly directed. "We acknowledge our past mistakes," Lisa said calmly. "But we also believe that overcoming challenges makes us stronger. We have survived ice ages, plagues, wars, and natural disasters. Each time we adapted and grew." The energy being flickered and spoke in a voice like distant thunder. "Survival is not the same as civilization. We offer you a place as a protected species under our guidance. Earth will become a reservation where humans can live peacefully under our protection." "What exactly does that mean?" Lisa asked, though she suspected she already knew the answer. The plant being rustled its leaves and spoke in a voice like wind through trees. "It means we will manage your planet's resources and population. Humans will be prevented from developing. Dangerous technologies are spreading beyond Earth. You will be safe but controlled." Lisa felt anger rising in her chest but kept her voice steady. "And if we refuse this generous offer?" Kasith's crystal body darkened to deep red. "Then you would need to prove yourselves worthy of equal membership in the coalition. This requires passing the trials of worth. These trials test military prowess, technological advancement, and cultural resilience. No species has completed them in over 100,000 years. What happened to the species that failed?" Lisa asked. The mechanical being's red sensors flashed as it spoke in a flat electronic voice. "Failure results in permanent restrictions on their development. Failed species are relocated to suitable worlds where they can exist without threatening galactic stability." Lisa understood the threat. Species that failed the trials were essentially enslaved or eliminated. The coalition was offering Earth a choice between immediate slavery or almost certain destruction. But Lisa had faced impossible odds before and won. She straightened her shoulders and looked each alien in the eye or equivalent organ. "We accept the challenge. Humanity will take the trials of worth." The 7 aliens exchanged glances that clearly showed their surprise and amusement. They had expected humans to accept protection like frightened children. Instead, their representative was volunteering for what they considered certain death. Kasith's crystal body cycled through several colors before settling on what might have been satisfaction. "Very well, Commander Martinez. You have 1 standard galactic year to prepare. The trials will test everything your species believes about itself. We look forward to seeing how long humanity can maintain its arrogance when faced with true power." As Lisa and her team returned to their ship, she could hear the aliens discussing Earth's resources and which species would claim which territories. They had already decided humanity would fail. That was their first mistake. Lisa had built her career on being underestimated by enemies who thought they knew what humans were capable of. The aliens were about to learn that humanity's greatest strength was not their technology or their numbers. It was their ability to adapt and overcome when everyone said it was impossible. The real challenge would not be passing the trials. It would be surviving long enough to take them. The journey back to Earth took 3 weeks, and Lisa spent every hour planning. She reviewed every recording from the meeting with the aliens and analyzed each species for weaknesses. The Jektar moved in perfect geometric patterns but seemed confused by random changes. The Vorthak flowed like gas but appeared vulnerable to pressure shifts. Each alien species was highly specialized for their environment, but lacked the flexibility that humans took for granted. When the discovery reached Earth orbit, Lisa was met by conflicting opinions from world leaders. President Helen Brooks supported taking the trials as humanity's best chance for survival. General Marcus Stone argued the aliens were clearly hostile and Earth should prepare for war instead of playing their games. The United Earth Council met in emergency session for 3 days. Lisa presented her findings to the assembly, showing how each alien species had evolved for millions of years in stable environments. They had become powerful but predictable. Humans had evolved through constant change and catastrophe, which made them adaptable The aliens expect us to fail because they judge us by their own standards, Lisa explained to the council. They see our chaotic history as weakness. I see it as our greatest strength. We are the only species that has learned to thrive in chaos. The vote was close, but President Brooks convinced enough delegates that the trials offered humanity's only path to equality. The alternative was eventual slavery or destruction. Lisa was given unlimited resources and authority to prepare for the trials. She began assembling a team of humanity's best specialists. Jake Rivera was chosen as pilot for his experience in extreme environments and unconventional flying techniques. Sam Collins joined as engineer with expertise in adaptive technology. Dr. Mehua Patel brought scientific knowledge and research skills. Sergeant Tony Kim provided military tactics and combat experience. Amy Johnson rounded out the team with communications expertise and strategic thinking. Each team member brought unique skills developed through humanity's difficult history. Jake had learned to fly in the chaotic atmosphere of Venus mining stations. Sam had designed survival systems for the hostile environments of Jupiter's moons. Maya had studied extremophile organisms that thrived in conditions that would kill most life. Tony had fought in asymmetric warfare where small forces defeated larger enemies through superior tactics. Amy had coordinated complex operations across multiple planets with unreliable communication systems. While Lisa trained her team, the aliens began their own preparations. They designed trials specifically to exploit what they saw as human weaknesses. The Jektar created crystalline maze weapons that required perfect spatial reasoning. The Vorthek planned atmospheric combat in toxic gas clouds. The Creolon designed swarm tactics meant to overwhelm human coordination abilities. However, the aliens made a critical error in their planning. They based their understanding of humans on limited observations of Earth's surface conflicts. They had watched human armies fight traditional battles, but had never seen humanity's true talent for turning disadvantages into advantages. Lisa spent months studying each alien species in detail. She discovered that the Coalition's greatest strength was also their weakness. Each species had evolved to perfect mastery in their chosen environment, but this specialization made them vulnerable outside their comfort zones. The crystalline Jektar thought in perfect mathematical patterns but struggled with chaos and randomness. The gaseous Vorthak existed as collective consciousness, but individual members were helpless alone. As the year progressed, strange accidents began happening to human colonies. Ships malfunctioned in space when their navigation systems failed without explanation. Communication arrays went offline during critical operations. Supply shipments disappeared between planets. At first, these incidents appeared random, but Lisa noticed a pattern. "They're not waiting for the trials," she told her team during a secure briefing. "The Coalition is already trying to weaken humanity before we even begin." Maya analyzed the malfunctions and found evidence of alien technology interference. "The pattern suggests they're testing our response capabilities while degrading our infrastructure," she reported. "They want us weakened and demoralized before the trials start." Lisa realized the aliens had never intended for the trials to be fair. They were using the preparation year to sabotage humanity while appearing to honor their agreement. This confirmed her suspicion that the Coalition had used similar tactics against other species for millions of years. Instead of confronting the aliens directly, Lisa decided to use their sabotage against them. She began feeding false information through channels she knew were compromised. The aliens learned about fake human weaknesses while remaining unaware of humanity's real preparations. Meanwhile, Lisa's team developed countermeasures for each expected trial. For the crystalline mazes, they studied Earth's cave systems and urban parkour techniques. Humans had always excelled at three-dimensional thinking and spatial navigation. For the toxic atmosphere trials, Maya created adaptive filtration systems based on extremophile bacteria from Earth's deep ocean vents. The team practiced swarm combat by studying Earth's social insects and developing tactics that use collective behavior against itself. They learned to create chaos in organized systems and find patterns in apparent randomness. Most importantly, they trained to work together as a flexible unit rather than specialized individuals. Tony's military experience proved invaluable in preparing for unknown challenges. Every battle plan falls apart when you meet the enemy, he told the team. The key is adapting faster than they can react. Humans are the best improvisers in the galaxy, even if we don't realize it yet. Amy worked on communication strategies that could function under any conditions. She developed backup systems and emergency protocols that would let the team coordinate, even if their primary equipment failed. Her game theory background helped her predict alien tactics and develop counter-strategies. As the year neared its end, Lisa noticed increased alien activity around Earth. Coalition ships began appearing at the edge of the solar system conducting what they called routine observations. Lisa suspected they were positioning forces for the aftermath of humanity's expected failure. The final month brought accelerated sabotage attempts. Entire colonies lost power simultaneously. Military installations suffered coordinated cyber attacks. Food production facilities experienced mysterious equipment failures. The aliens were clearly trying to create desperation that would make Earth's leaders reconsider the trials. President Brooks faced increasing pressure to withdraw from the trials and accept protected status. General Stone publicly argued that the aliens had already shown their hostile intentions and Earth should attack first. Civil unrest broke out in several major cities as people panicked about humanity's future. Lisa addressed the world in a live broadcast 3 weeks before the trials began. The aliens want us afraid because fear makes us predictable, she said. They have studied us for decades, but they only understand our weaknesses. They have never seen what humans can do when we stop trying to meet their expectations and start exceeding our own. Her words calmed the panic and renewed public support for the trials. Lisa knew the broadcast would also reach the aliens and let them know humanity would not be intimidated. She wanted them overconfident when the trials began. The team made final preparations aboard a new ship designed specifically for the trials. The vessel incorporated every lesson learned from studying alien technology while maintaining human design principles. It could adapt to any environment and modify its systems in real time based on changing conditions. As they departed Earth for the trial worlds, Lisa looked back at the blue planet that had forged humanity through millions of years of challenges. Her species had survived ice ages and asteroid impacts. They had overcome plagues and wars and natural disasters. Now they faced their greatest test, but Lisa was confident in one thing: humans had always been at their best when everyone said they couldn't win. The aliens were about to learn why underestimating humanity was the last mistake any species ever made. The first trial took place on Crystallis, the Jektar homeworld, where everything was made of living crystal that responded to thought and movement. Lisa and her team stood at the entrance to a massive three-dimensional maze that stretched both above and below ground. The crystalline walls shifted, constantly creating new passages while closing others. Admiral Kaseth materialized beside them, his crystal body glowing with confident light. "This maze has defeated every species that attempted it for the past 50,000 years, he announced. "The passages respond to your presence and intentions. Most beings become lost within minutes as the crystal reads their thoughts and creates infinite loops of confusion." Lisa studied the shifting walls carefully. The crystal moved in mathematical patterns that were beautiful but predictable once you understood the underlying logic. She had seen similar behavior in Earth's ice caves, where pressure and temperature created constantly changing formations. "Jake, you take point," she ordered. "Treat this like navigating the storm systems around Jupiter. Don't fight the changes, anticipate them." Jake Rivera nodded and stepped into the maze. He had spent years piloting ships through chaotic asteroid fields and gas giant atmospheres where conditions changed every second. Instead of trying to force a straight path, he began moving with the crystal's rhythm, letting its shifts guide him toward their destination. The Jektar expected humans to become frustrated and disoriented as the maze read their intentions and blocked their chosen routes. But Jake wasn't thinking about destinations or routes. He was feeling the flow of the crystal's movement and riding it like a pilot rides solar winds, The team followed Jake's lead, moving through the maze like dancers following music only they could hear. When the walls closed, they were already moving toward new openings. When passages split, they instinctively chose directions that felt right rather than looked logical. Sam Collins used his engineering background to understand how the crystal responded to different types of thought and emotion. It reacts to planning and goal-oriented thinking, he reported through their communication system. But it ignores instinctive movement and emotional responses. Maya Patel realized the crystal was essentially a living organism that had evolved to respond to the logical thought patterns of the Jektar and other coalition species. Human intuition and emotional decision-making were foreign concepts that the maze couldn't interpret or counter. Within 2 hours, the team emerged from the center of the maze carrying the energy crystal that marked successful completion. Cases. Body flickered through several colors indicating shock and disbelief. No species had ever completed the crystalline maze in less than a full day, and most never finished at all. The second trial moved to Vorthek Prime, where teams had to navigate toxic gas clouds while capturing energy sources floating in the atmosphere. The gas was lethal to most oxygen-breathing species, but the Vorthek expected humans to suffocate or be poisoned within minutes. Maya had prepared for this challenge by studying extremophile bacteria from Earth's deep ocean thermal vents. She had developed adaptive filters that could process almost any atmospheric composition. The team's breathing apparatus automatically adjusted to extract oxygen from the toxic gases while neutralizing harmful compounds, but the real advantage came from understanding how the Vorthek themselves moved through their gaseous environment. As collective consciousness entities, they flowed in predictable patterns, following electromagnetic fields and pressure gradients. The humans learned to read these invisible currents and use them for navigation and speed. Tony Kim applied lessons from underwater combat training to movement in the dense gas clouds. The team swam through the atmosphere using techniques developed for fighting in Earth's oceans. They could change direction instantly and move in 3 dimensions while the Vorthek observers struggled to track their unpredictable paths. The energy sources were protected by gas vortexes that would tear apart most solid beings, but Amy Johnson had studied hurricane dynamics and recognized the calm centers where humans could safely approach their targets. The team collected all required energy sources in record time while the Vorthek Council watched in stunned silence. The third trial on Kralon involved combat against swarm intelligences where individual prowess meant nothing against overwhelming numbers. The insectoid hosts expected humans to be crushed by coordinated attacks from thousands of warrior drones operating as a single mind. Tony had prepared for this by studying Earth's social insects and developing tactics that turned collective behavior into weakness. Swarm intelligence works by following simple rules that create complex behavior, he explained to the team. But those same rules can be exploited if you understand the underlying patterns. The human team didn't try to fight the swarm directly. Instead, they introduced chaos into the collective decision-making process. By moving in unexpected patterns and creating false signals, they confused the swarm's coordination mechanisms. Jake used his piloting skills to lead groups of drones into collisions with each other. Sam created electromagnetic interference that disrupted their communication frequencies. Maya released pheromone compounds that triggered conflicting behavioral responses in different parts of the swarm. Amy coordinated the team's actions, using game theory principles to predict how the swarm would respond to various stimuli. She identified the critical decision points where small actions could cascade into large-scale confusion throughout the collective intelligence. Within hours, the mighty Kralon swarm was fighting itself as different sections received contradictory commands. The human team walked through the chaos untouched, while warrior drones attacked their own allies in confusion. The Kralon leadership buzzed in agitation as their perfect collective intelligence tore itself apart. News of humanity's success in the first 3 trials spread quickly through the galaxy. Other species that had been kept out of coalition politics began sending observers to witness these unprecedented victories. For the first time in millions of years, a species was actually passing the trials of worth. The coalition leaders held emergency meetings to discuss this unexpected development. They had designed the trials to be impossible based on their understanding of how intelligent species should behave. But humans consistently violated those expectations by approaching problems from angles no other species had ever considered. "They don't think like civilized beings," complained the Madani representative. "They respond to logic with emotion, and to emotion with logic. They treat cooperation as competition and competition as cooperation. How can we predict species that doesn't even predict itself?" Teseda's crystal body had remained dark since the maze trial. "We underestimated their adaptability," he admitted reluctantly. "They seem to excel specifically in conditions where other species fail. Chaos and uncertainty make them stronger rather than weaker." The Vorthek collective consciousness expressed deep concern about humanity's implications for galactic stability. If they can pass all 5 trials, they will demand equal membership in the coalition. Other species will see this as proof that our dominance can be challenged. This could destabilize millions of years of careful control. The Creolon Queen clicked her mandibles in agreement. "We cannot allow these humans to complete the trials. The galaxy is not ready for species that refuses to accept limitations. They must be stopped before they inspire others to similar rebellion." But stopping humanity now would violate the coalition's own laws and reveal their true nature to the watching galaxy. They had to let the trials continue while finding other ways to ensure human failure. Lisa sensed the changing mood among their alien observers as her team prepared for the 4th trial. The coalition representatives were no longer treating this as an amusing demonstration of primitive arrogance. They were beginning to see humanity as a genuine threat to their established order. "They're getting scared," she told her team during their briefing. "Scared beings make dangerous decisions. The next 2 trials won't just test our abilities. They'll test our survival skills against opponents who have decided we're too dangerous to live." The team had proven they could adapt to any challenge and overcome any obstacle. But now they faced something more dangerous than maze or swarms or toxic atmosphere. They faced the desperation of tyrants who would rather destroy the galaxy than give up their power. The real trials were just beginning. The 4th trial took place on Madani, an ocean world where massive cities floated beneath kilometers of dark water. The aquatic hosts expected air-breathing humans to struggle with both the crushing depths and the complex diplomatic puzzles that had to be solved while completely submerged. Lisa's team descended in pressure. Suits designed by Sam Collins using principles from Earth's deep-sea exploration. But instead of bulky traditional equipment, Sam had created streamlined suits that gave humans unprecedented mobility underwater. The suits recycled breathing gases and maintained perfect pressure balance while allowing natural swimming movements. The trial required teams to negotiate peace treaties between warring underwater factions while obtaining their signatures on documents that would dissolve in the corrosive seawater if exposed for more than a few minutes. Most species failed because they couldn't understand the complex social dynamics or work effectively in the hostile environment. Amy Johnson's background in game theory proved invaluable for understanding the motivations of each faction. She quickly recognized that the apparent conflicts were actually elaborate social rituals designed to test negotiating skills, rather than genuine disputes between hostile groups. "They're not really fighting," she explained to the team through their underwater communication system. "Each faction represents different aspects of Madani culture, and the conflicts are symbolic representations of internal philosophical debates. We need to find the common values that unite them rather than trying to resolve their differences." The human team split up to work with different factions simultaneously. This confused the Madani observers who expected linear sequential negotiations, like other species attempted. But humans were comfortable with parallel processing and multitasking in ways that overwhelmed more specialized alien minds. Jake used his piloting intuition to navigate the complex current patterns that carried messages between factions. Sam's Engineering skills helped him design underwater communication networks that allowed rapid information exchange. Maya's scientific knowledge let her understand the biological basis of Madani. Social structures. Tony applied military logistics to coordinate multiple simultaneous negotiations, while Amy used strategic thinking to identify the key decision makers in each faction. Within hours, they had created a web of interconnected agreements that satisfied all parties while completing the trial requirements. But during the negotiations, Maya made a disturbing discovery while accessing Madani historical databases. The aquatic beings maintained detailed records going back millions of years, including information about previous species that had attempted the trials of worth. "Lisa, you need to see this," Maya called privately through their secure channel. Found records of hundreds of species that tried these trials over the past million years. Not one of them succeeded, but that's not the interesting part. Look at what happened to them afterward. The data files revealed a pattern of systematic extermination disguised as protective relocation. Species that failed the trials were moved to isolated worlds where they were gradually weakened through resource restrictions and technological limitations. Eventually, they either died out naturally or were eliminated when they became inconvenient. The trials aren't tests of worthiness, Maya realized with growing horror. They're selection mechanisms for genocide. The Coalition uses them to identify emerging species and eliminate potential threats to their power. Lisa felt cold rage building in her chest as she reviewed the evidence. The Coalition had been systematically murdering entire civilizations for millions of years while maintaining the pretense of peaceful galactic governance. Every species that showed promise was lured into the trials and destroyed. The pattern was clear and horrifying. Young species were allowed to develop until they reached space travel capability. Then Coalition observers would make contact and offer the trials as a path to galactic citizenship. The trials were designed to be impossible based on careful study of each species' limitations. When the inevitable failure occurred, the Coalition would express regret and offer protective status instead. The failed species would be relocated to reservation worlds where their development was carefully controlled. Over time, they would be weakened through resource restrictions until they could be safely eliminated. "How many?" Lisa asked quietly. Maya's voice was grim as she answered. "At least 400 species in the last million years. Probably thousands more in earlier periods where records are incomplete. The Coalition has been the galaxy's most successful extinction event," Amy discovered. Additional files showing how the Coalition divided the resources of eliminated species among themselves. They had turned genocide into a profitable industry that maintained their technological and economic dominance while removing any possible competition. "We have to get this information out," Amy said urgently. "There are dozens of species observing these trials who don't know the truth about Coalition methods. If they understand what's really happening, they might be willing to act. But transmitting the evidence would require accessing galactic communication networks that were controlled by the Coalition itself. Any attempt to broadcast the information would be detected and blocked before it could reach other species." Lisa realized they were in a trap more sophisticated than any mere trial. The Coalition had never intended for humanity to complete all 5 trials. They were being allowed to succeed in the first 4 only to make their eventual elimination more convincing to outside observers. "The 5th trial isn't going to be a test," she told her team grimly. "It's going to be an execution disguised as a failed trial. They'll kill us and tell the galaxy that humanity couldn't handle the final challenge." The team completed the diplomatic requirements and received formal approval from the Madani hosts. But as they prepared to leave for the final trial location, Lisa noticed increased Coalition military activity throughout the system. Ships were moving into positions that would allow them to control all escape routes. Admiral Kasith appeared on their communication screen with an expression that might have been satisfaction. "Congratulations on completing the 4th trial, Commander Martinez. You have exceeded our expectations in most impressive fashion. The final trial on Luxara Prime will test your species' ultimate capabilities." "What exactly does that mean?" Lisa asked, though she suspected she already knew. The energy beings of Luxara can manipulate matter at the molecular level, Kasif explained. They will test whether humanity can maintain cohesion when faced with powers beyond your comprehension. It should be most educational for all observers. Lisa understood the threat. The fifth trial would pit her team against beings that could literally disintegrate them at will. It wasn't a test of skill or adaptability. It was a public execution designed to demonstrate what happened to species that challenged coalition authority. As the human ship departed, Madani Space Lisa began planning for what might be humanity's final stand. The evidence of coalition genocide was stored in secure files that could be transmitted if they found a way to access galactic communication networks. But first they had to survive long enough to get the information out the coalition had made. One critical error in their planning. They assumed that discovering the truth about the trials would demoralize humanity and make them easier to eliminate. Instead, it had given Lisa and her team something worth dying for that was bigger than their own survival. They weren't just fighting for Earth anymore. They were fighting for every species the coalition had murdered and every species they planned to murder in the future. The trials had revealed the coalition's true nature as galactic parasites that maintained power through systematic genocide. They think they're apex predators, Lisa told her team as they approached Luxara Prime. But they've been feeding on children for so long, they've forgotten what it's like to face something that can fight back. They're about to learn that Earth's apex predator doesn't give up when the odds are impossible. The final confrontation was about to begin, and humanity would either die as heroes or live as the species that ended 1,000,000 years of tyranny. Either way, the galaxy would never be the same. The human ship approached Luxara Prime expecting to find a trial world, but instead discovered the entire coalition fleet waiting in battle formation. Hundreds of crystalline Jektar vessels surrounded gas cloud ships of the Vorthik while insectoid. Creolon swarms filled the space between them. Mechanical Tekran destroyers flanked organic Sylvani living ships as aquatic. Madani carriers coordinated the massive force. Admiral Kaseth's voice filled the communication channel with what sounded like satisfaction. I regret to inform you that the fifth trial has been cancelled, Commander Martinez. Your species has demonstrated abilities that exceed acceptable parameters for galactic stability. For the safety of all civilized worlds, humanity must be terminated. Lisa had expected this moment since discovering the genocide files on Madani. The coalition had never intended to honor their agreement because they couldn't afford to let humanity succeed. A species that could pass the trials would inspire others to challenge coalition dominance. So much for your peaceful civilization, Lisa replied calmly. How many other species have you murdered when they got too inconvenient? 47 civilizations in the past 100,000 years, Kasith answered without shame. Each elimination was necessary to maintain galactic order. Your destruction will serve the same purpose. The coalition fleet began moving into attack formation, but Lisa was ready with the most human response possible. She didn't just fight back. She turned the entire situation upside down in ways the aliens couldn't predict or counter. Jake Rivera pushed their ship into impossible maneuvers that violated every principle of space combat the coalition understood. He flew through gas clouds that should have torn the hull apart and used gravity wells to change direction in patterns that confused alien targeting systems. His years of experience in chaotic environments let him treat the massive battle like navigating an asteroid storm. Sam Collins released clouds of metallic particles that disrupted Jektar crystal formations while electromagnetic pulses interfered with Tekron mechanical systems. His engineering modifications allowed the human ship to function in conditions that would disable coalition vessels. Tony Kim coordinated boarding actions against enemy ships using tactics developed for zero-gravity urban warfare. Human Marines moved through alien vessels like they were fighting in Earth space stations, using the aliens' own specialized environments against them. Maya Patel deployed biological agents designed to interfere with each species' unique physiology. Gas compounds that created chaos in Vorthik collective consciousness, pheromones that triggered panic responses in Creolon swarms, and sonic frequencies that disrupted Madani echolocation systems, but the real victory came when Amy Johnson activated a galaxy-wide communication burst that transmitted all the evidence of coalition genocide to every species in known space. The broadcast used quantum entanglement, networks that couldn't be blocked or stopped once initiated, across the galaxy. Hundreds of civilizations learned the truth about their supposed protectors. The coalition hadn't been maintaining peace for millions of years. They had been systematically eliminating any species that might challenge their dominance while growing fat on the resources of murdered worlds. The reaction was immediate and devastating for the coalition. Rebellions erupted on 1,000 worlds as enslaved species realized they had been living under the boot of genocidal tyrants. Ships that had been forced to serve coalition interests turned on their masters. Entire sectors declared independence and began coordinating resistance efforts. "You have doomed the galaxy to chaos," Kaseth screamed as his crystal body darkened with rage. "Millions will die in the wars you have started." "Millions were already dying," Lisa replied as human fighters swarmed around coalition capital ships. "The only difference is now they're fighting back instead of dying quietly in camps you built for them." The battle above Luxara Prime became the focal point for a galaxy-wide uprising. Coalition forces found themselves fighting not just humanity but coordinated attacks from dozens of liberated species working together for the first time in millions of years. The aliens had designed their fleets to intimidate individual worlds into submission. But faced with coordinated resistance from multiple civilizations, their advantages disappeared. Ships that relied on psychological warfare became vulnerable when their enemies were no longer afraid. Kaseth challenged Lisa to single combat as their fleets battled around them. The Jektar admiral was supremely confident in his species, crystalline perfection, and couldn't understand how a primitive human continued to outmaneuver him. "Your mistake was the same one all coalition species made," Lisa told him as they fought. "Among the wreckage of burning ships, you assumed that stability equals strength. You've been apex predators for so long you forgot how to adapt when something fights back." Kaseth's crystal form was beautiful and nearly indestructible, but it was also predictable. He moved in perfect geometric patterns that followed mathematical principles Lisa had learned to read during the first trial. Every attack was precisely calculated, but that precision made him vulnerable to chaotic responses. Lisa fought like humans had always fought, with improvisation and desperation and willingness to sacrifice anything for victory. She used debris from destroyed ships as weapons and turned Kaseth's own crystalline perfection against him by introducing chaos into his ordered patterns. The final blow came when Lisa grabbed a shard of broken crystal and drove it into the geometric center of Kaseth's form. The Admiral's perfect structure shattered like glass as millions of years of rigid thinking collapsed under the pressure of something truly unpredictable. "That's why you're already extinct," Lisa told the dying alien as crystal fragments drifted around them. "You just didn't know it yet?" The coalition fleet broke apart as news of Kaseth's death spread through their ranks. Without their crystalline coordinators, the other species couldn't maintain formation against coordinated attacks from liberated civilizations. Some ships surrendered while others fought to the bitter end rather than face justice for millions of years of genocide. Within hours, the coalition that had dominated the galaxy for eons was reduced to scattered refugees fleeing toward distant stars. Their vast fleets were captured or destroyed, while their homeworlds fell to revolutionary forces that had learned the truth about their oppressors. The aftermath was chaotic but hopeful as hundreds of species worked together to build something better from the ashes of tyranny. Lisa found herself coordinating efforts to establish a new galactic government based on cooperation rather than domination. "We could rule them," Tony suggested as reports came in of coalition worlds begging for mercy. Humanity proved we're stronger than any of them. "That's exactly what the coalition thought," Lisa replied firmly. "Power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. We're here to liberate the galaxy, not conquer it." Instead of becoming new overlords, humanity helped establish the Free Galaxy Alliance, where hundreds of species cooperated as equals. The Coalition's advanced technologies were shared freely while their weapons of oppression were destroyed. Worlds that had been prison camps became homes again for species that had thought themselves extinct. The trials had been designed to identify and eliminate emerging civilizations, but they had instead revealed the Coalition's true nature to the galaxy. By underestimating humanity, the aliens had triggered their own destruction and liberation for countless enslaved worlds. 6 months later, Lisa stood in the ruins of the former Coalition capital watching construction crews from dozens of species working together to build the new Galactic Council chambers. Representatives from every liberated world were coming to participate in genuine democracy for the first time in millions of years. President Brooks arrived from Earth to attend the founding ceremony of the Free Galaxy Alliance. The alien said, "You are outmatched," she reminded Lisa as they watched former enemies working side by side. "They were wrong about everything else too," Lisa replied with satisfaction, including their belief that the galaxy belonged to them. The greatest victory hadn't been military conquest, but the proof that cooperation could triumph over domination. Humanity's chaotic nature had broken the chains that bound hundreds of civilizations and shown them that even the mightiest tyrants could fall when people refused to stay afraid. The aliens had said she was outmatched, but Lisa knew better. No one could match something that refused to accept limitations, especially when that something was willing to fight for everyone who couldn't fight for themselves. The galaxy was free, and it would stay that way because humans had learned long ago that some things were worth dying for. Now they had taught the rest of the galaxy that lesson too.